the World Series events were running, undisputed was on the map. The causal system was made to show absolutes only. Its duality can only point out a winner and a loser. That meant we had to find engineers that were passionate enough to build a system that provides the possibility of all sort of empiric testing with criteria. Judging by hand sign also only shows absolute decisions. One can show to the left, to the right, or decides to not make a decision due to whatever reason. Most of the time it is interpreted as a tie, but it doesn't have to be one. Most current judging interfaces only offer the same. They show that one side won, but not by how much weight. Sometimes 5 judges point to one side, which gives the impression that this side has won this battle overwhelmingly, but maybe it was just one small detail that made the judges decide for the winner. The following month we kept juggling around with our criteria. Testing them was definitely not easy, since the system itself only allowed for a winner or a loser. We were deeply in need for a tool that displays more than an absolute duality, since it didn't represent the reality at all. That's when we came up with the idea of using a crossfader. While comparing the performances of the breakers competing in real time, the balance between them may constantly shift. By using a crossfader scale, the judges can avoid making black and white judgments, allowing their judging to become closer to the reality of a gradual decision. A report from early 2015 shows our aims at testing criteria. On the bottom, it shows under in-between phase that we were trying to imply a standard value system. It shows the first indicator of a fader system as well. The entire year was dedicated to empirical testing. We didn't have a computer interface that enabled us to test the criteria in an easy manner. We mainly used competitions as a testing forum. While some guests in the audience would test the work criteria and their grid, we would judge the conventional way. If their decisions were right from ours, we took it into consideration. If they found the criteria were hard to manage in their setup hierarchies, we also tried to find a better cognitive solution. At IBE in 2013, we had separate meetings with Wynot, Jersky, and also with Buddha Stretch. That weekend, there was also a panel about judging. Stretch gave us an insight on how he was judging contests in the past couple of years, and he also had similar criteria that we picked. In a Facebook post a few months after, he wrote, "Rhythm, technique, vocabulary, creativity, character. Used these 5 for years now. Spoke on this at IBE with Neil Storm-Robitsky last year. It's quite simple. Rhythm, the why of the dance. That means the music. Technique, the how of the dance. That means how you do it. Vocabulary, the what of the dance. That means what exactly are you doing. Creativity, the where of the dance. That means where you put the what, the why and how together. And character, the who of the dance. That means that shows who you are in the dance." And again he confirmed the criteria that were almost coherent with ours. By constantly trying to compare our criteria with those of others and reconfiguring them into different hierarchies of orders, it became very clear that it was a bad idea to assign each judge to one criterion only. They are all connected and interweave to some extent. The question now was rather to find the best hierarchy of nested orders, a construct that any judge can operate with easily. There was one thing that became intriguing in the way Buddha Stretch noted his criterion rhythm, which represented the music, was with why we dance. Almost around the same time in my quest to find out what dancing actually is, I read an article from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy called "The Philosophy of Dance." Under a subordinate chapter with the headline "What Dance Actually Is," I noticed that nothing inside its entire description pointed at the importance of music. Then towards the end, it stated the following, and I quote, "Dance has salient bodily aspects that complicate the questions of how and why it can be conceived as a fine art, and how mind and its connection with the body is involved in the making, performing, evaluating, and appreciating of dances." And I thought simply, we're mentioning the mind and the body, why not mentioning the soul as well, which would be represented by rhythm or music and might have made that triad complete. Stretch reminded me of my thought process by his Facebook post, and we rejigged our model from 26th of May 2014 after the body, the mind and the soul. Here you can see how we compared. We took character away from the physical quality, since it is part of the individual development, and dragged it into artistic quality. Here it was called personality from now on. Stretch stresses on the dance style that has to be learned as a craft. Learning a craft is learning its fundamentals as its technique. We took it out of artistic quality and now has its place in the physical quality. And what was simply called climax before is the by far more complex term performativity now. We don't expect anybody to know right away what this term comprises when the word does not even exist in dictionaries. It was invented by J.L. Austin in the late 1950s. He started using it in connection with speech. While we were working on criteria for 2 performance competitions called Shift and Skill Set, we came up with the first definition. While all other terms in the judging matrix seem quite easy and comprehensive, this one still poses a problem for anybody who is not familiar with its use. If we speak of performativity, it is to speak of the attributes that make a performance performance-like. All other criteria that are listed up above are used to describe and form the skill of a person. We have become increasingly aware that it is in fact through doing that being is created, sustained and transformed. Through performativity, we point out the reflexivity and self-generative nature of dance vocabulary, which is no longer seen as essentially derived from an abstract system of rules, but as a functioning social practice used. It is not directed towards copying or restoring, but towards enacting its subject in the mode of being for the first time. A person's identity is shaped by the particular role one plays. Whether or not a person's staged identity is successful depends therefore on the extent to which the performance is credible, consistent, and appropriate in the eyes of an audience. Any performance is communication-based. Where dance explicitly reveals itself as a self-referential, that is not verifiable with reference to a pre-existence outside of dance, and world constituent. That's the ideal. We could also look for the it, defines a surprise moment. It, in the case of humor, is what creates a temporary restructuring of experience. The it, in the case of intelligence, is a permanent restructuring, an insight or an aha, and that may be an element of wisdom. The feeling evoked in the audience may vary, from fear to disgust to joy or pain, etc. It is all possible, credible and legit.